On Saturday, it's the League One playoff final, and one of either Sunderland or Wycombe will be promoted to the Championship. So, in this video, I'm going to be previewing the match and then giving my thoughts and prediction as to who I think will be promoted. But before I do that, let's talk about each team, how they've got on this season, and also how they got on in their playoff semi-final matches. Let's start with Sunderland. Now, they finished 5th in the season with 84 points, and they started the season with Lee Johnson. He started okay for Sunderland, but in the end he was sacked in February after Sunderland lost 6-0 away against Bolton, which is pretty horrific from Sunderland's standard, given that they've actually only spent about 5 or 6 seasons in League One, and arguably losing 6-0 away to Bolton is their worst ever league defeat in their history. So Lee Johnson was sacked, Alex Neil took over, and at the time I thought it was a really good appointment, a proper coup from Sunderland, given that Alex Neil has won promotion out of the Championship with Norwich and performed relatively well at Preston, and has also won promotion with Hamilton. And for such a young manager, he's got a really decent track record. And the stats proven to be the case. In 17 games that Alex Neil has been in charge at Sunderland, they've only lost once, and that was at home to MK Dons, where, yes, MK Dons are a good team and deserve to finish 3rd, but they kind of just hit Sunderland on the counter-attack that day. But other than that, Sunderland haven't lost under Alex Neil and have kept 8 clean sheets and have won 9 games. And in 4 of those wins, they scored 3 times in 3 of those games. And in one of those games, they scored 5 times. So going forwards, they're very good. And defensively, keeping 8 clean sheets was really good for Sunderland. So they were in great form going into the playoff campaign. And then when they played Sheffield Wednesday at home, they were pretty decent. Stewart, of course, capitalising a mistake from Hutchinson, which has actually turned out to be a really vital goal for Sunderland because that helped them get through to the final. So Ross Stewart finished that chance off. And then in the away leg, Sheffield Wednesday, looked like they'd just taken a lead late on, but then Sunderland and Roberts scored in the 92nd minute to send Sunderland to Wembley. So going into this game, they'll be relatively confident they can actually do a decent job because Sunderland are in good form going into this game. They've got some really dangerous players going forward in Roberts, Broadhead and Stewart, who are very good League One players. And Alex Neil, given his track record with promotions, having won the playoffs, won promotion via playoffs with Hamilton and Norwich, it shows that in big occasions Alex Neil is so far a pretty decent manager in his young career. However, Sunderland, this is their 4th appearance at Wembley in 3 years, and 2 of those were losses. So they lost in the Johnstone's Paint Trophy final against Portsmouth, and they lost in the League One playoff final against Charlton. But then they did beat, I believe it's Rochdale in the Johnstone's Paint Trophy final this season, or last season, recently anyway. So Sunderland have a mixed record at Wembley. But like I said, Alex Neil has won promotion via the playoffs twice already, which is pretty impressive given how young he is as a manager. As for Wycombe, in 14 games, so going into the playoff campaign, in 14 games, they've only lost once and have kept 8 clean sheets. And that one loss was against MK Dons in the second leg of the semi-final playoffs. And really, they could afford to lose that game 1-0 because in the first leg, Wycombe played really well and comfortably won 2-0. So going into that game, in the second leg, Wycombe just set up to either draw 0-0 or even lose 1-0. They didn't really mind that MK Dons took the lead and won the match because ultimately Wycombe are through to the final. So it shows that both teams are in very good form going into the playoffs. So in terms of the final itself, I've talked already about Sunderland's recent record at Wembley. As for Wycombe, 2 years ago they were in the League One playoff final, and it's quite interesting to look at the team sheet that day because they've significantly upgraded their team, have Wycombe, since 2020. Because even though you've still got a core spine of the likes of Grimmer, Stewart, Dominic Gape and Stockdale and Akinfenwa, all part of the team, all part of the squad, they've now improved key areas. Oh, and Joe Jacobson, of course. Who could forget Joe Jacobson? I almost did. But now they've improved key areas of the squad. So in midfield, they've got Josh Scowen now, who's a very good League One player, but especially going forward as well. You've got Gareth McCleary and Sam Vokes, who, if you were to make a list of the top 15 best League One players, Vokes and McCleary would, I think, personally be in the top 5. They're right up there in terms of the best League One players going forward. And also with Wycombe, they have McCarthy at right back, who some could argue is an upgrade on Grimmer, but also Tapasoli, who is very strong in the air, good at playing those long balls, and is an upgrade on Darius Charles at this level. So, like I said, Wycombe, from 2 years ago, have a better squad than they did in the last time they reached the playoff finals. As for Sunderland, I did say earlier that going forward, they've got the likes of Stewart, Broadhead, and Roberts, who are very good going forwards. And of course, they've got Luke O'Nien in midfield playing against his former team. And I think the start is crucial for Sunderland. If Sunderland can score early on, they've got a massive chance of winning this game. But I think the longer the game goes on, the more it will suit Wycombe, because Wycombe are very comfortable not having possession and letting Sunderland dictate how much possession they have. Wycombe will be quite happy to have a low defensive block, sit deep, and then hit Sunderland on the counter-attack with those really good League One players in Gareth McCleary, Sam Vokes, and even Daryl Horgan, who's an Ireland international. What's interesting about this game as well is that VAR is going to be introduced. Now, I'm not entirely 100% sure if VAR is needed, to be honest, because there's not been a massive call for it. However, the fact that VAR is going to be involved inevitably in the League One game, I think will only suit Sunderland. Just because Sunderland will keep more of the ball, they probably will create more chances. And if there's like a dodgy handball decision or potential penalty shout, I think it's more likely to go to Sunderland than Wycombe. However, having said that, in terms of prediction, before I go on to my prediction, it's interesting to note that in terms of the bookie odds, I'm not a betting man myself, but apparently Sunderland have a 48% chance of winning the game according to SofaScore, and for Wycombe, they have a 29% chance of winning the game. That means that Sunderland are the clear favourites, and I think in pretty much all bookmakers, Sunderland are the favourites. But then I think that just suits Wycombe. They like being the underdog. They won't care that much. They have fewer fans at Wembley than Sunderland. They'll relish being the underdog and not having the ball. So it's a really difficult one to call. If Sunderland start well, I think Wycombe will really struggle to hit Sunderland on the counter-attack. One thing I will say as well is that in the League One playoff final 2 years ago, Oxford were a very possession-oriented side, and Wycombe sat very deep and defended very well. However, Oxford did have a good number of chances, and I think Sunderland will on Saturday. It's just whether they can take them. It's a difficult game to call, but I think because of Wycombe's experience recently in the League One playoff final 2 years ago, and just given the amount of experience they have in the team, they've got Akinfenwa, who's 40, they've got David Stockdale and Joe Jacobson, who's in his mid-30s. They're a very experienced team, and Sam Vokes and Daryl Horgan, Gareth McCleary, they're all former international players. So they're a very experienced team, and I think that's really important in a one-off game like this. So my prediction is that Sunderland will be the better team in the first half. They'll create more chances, but they won't score. And I think Wycombe are going to win 1-0 in normal time through a set piece, probably a corner. And looking at Huddersfield-Luton in the second leg of the Championship playoff semi-final, Luton were the better team on the night, but they couldn't take their chances, and Huddersfield took theirs. So in these type of games, it's all well and good playing well, but you need to take those chances. And I don't think Sunderland will, and I think Wycombe will. So simply being, I think Wycombe are going to win 1-0 through a set piece. But let me know what you think in the comments below. Please like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you all later.